So I was scrolling on my feed late at night, as one does, and I came across this short by Impound Comics, who was actually responding to another person from TikTok, I believe, and I'm just going to go ahead and play that short in full right now. I think he brings up some interesting points, but I just want to make a few corrections and build off of what he was saying.
I never liked the X-Men as a group, and I didn't know why until I started thinking about it. It's because their story's based off racism and being an outsider, and it just doesn't make sense.
There's a lot to unpack here. And let me start by saying this. I understand what you think you're saying as an example, but you miss the main premise of X-Men. For one, it's not based on racism, it's based on discrimination, since the X-Men are a bunch of different races and ethnicities, but the idea of racism in the real world. And the reason why I say you didn't understand the premise is because you said this.
Example, say a boulder's falling on a person, they're frozen in fear. Somebody throws a card at the boulder, it breaks, saves the person's life. And people just react with, oh my god, what a freak, he could throw exploding cards? Alright, same scenario now. So the boulder's fallen, and another man comes by, sticks white sticky fluid that comes out of his wrist onto the man, and pulls him to save him. Pulls him out of the way of the boulder. And they're like, oh, what a hero, we love this guy, he's awesome!
So to sum up what he's saying, he doesn't understand why mutant powers are frowned upon, then other characters like the Hulk, Spider-Man, other type of heroes, their powers are praised and they're looked at as superheroes. But what he doesn't understand is, it's not about the powers on what separates the mutants from the other characters. For one, you use Hulk as an example, but that was actually a bad example because Hulk is definitely discriminated against, but a different reason. That's a whole nother example. But these characters and other characters in Marvel, again, are mutates. They're, for the most part, lab experience or some sort of tampering from man made a lot of these characters the way that they are, and it can be explained or prevented. Mutants is a story about evolution, literally evolution, having a thing called the X gene. Now let me explain why that's a problem for them or for mankind. The X-Men is a story about the chain of evolution, and what we know about that is whenever a new version shows up, it dominates the previous version or the previous version ceases to exist. So when you talk about a time where there were Neanderthals, they were the most intelligent and dominant being on planet Earth until the modern humans showed up, and then they ceased to exist. Mutants are the next chain in human evolution. So this is the modern human, and this is what we are going to become, and there's nothing that humans can do to stop it because it's evolution. So the reason why there's discrimination and hatred towards the mutants is because the modern human fears we will cease to exist if we don't stop evolution from happening, because it's inevitable for the better versions of human beings to dominate the past versions. So these type of heroes technically is not evolution. They were tampered with and created and mutated. So it's not a direct threat to humans or mankind as a whole. So it's not necessarily about powers. It's about humans of today don't want to cease to exist to the next phase of evolution. I hope that helps.
Okay, now that we're back, so I just want to push it back on a few ideas. And the first one is that I think it's really interesting and kind of sets the stage for the rest of this video that he brings up Neanderthal as the previous iteration of humans. And that's because Neanderthal wasn't our ancestor. Neanderthal was a subspecies of humans, just like Homo sapiens sapien is a subspecies of humans, that lived alongside of our ancestors. And there's something interesting that happened where every time Homo sapiens sapiens came on the scene, the other human population in the area would go extinct. And we were thinking, oh, like humans, we're just killing everything we come across that even looks a little bit like us, but not, quite the same enough. But the interesting thing is, in the modern day, when you look at our DNA, at our genes, we find the genes of Neanderthal, of Denisovans, and of a lot of the other human species that we cohabited the planet on. It's really quite fascinating, and it just goes to show you that it wasn't so much that they were killed into extinction, it's that they were folded into and became a part of the human race. Now on that note, mutants. Mutants have actually been around a lot longer than most people realize in the continuity of Marvel. There are mutants that are considered primal mutants. These are mutants that have shown up across the human history, and there seems to be some typical ones like Wolverine, Sabretooth. Those seem to be like a very typical primal X gene mutation, but there are others, of course. And it's not so much that it's the next stage of evolution, it's that it is a part of the human species. It is a divergence in our genes. It's only really characters like Magneto and other mutant supremacists that really tell us, and that's, they're unreliable narrators. We can't really take their word for it. They're the one that tells us that they are the next stage of evolution, that they are superior. Now, when in reality, mutation, mutants, that's just a natural part of the human species. And it's better if they integrate with society, and it's not like they're going to kill all humans. I don't think that was ever the message. I don't think that was ever the intention. I think it's more that, hey, different people exist, and resisting them, fighting back against them, is bad, and it will make everybody worse. You see this in a lot of racial supremacy and eugenics movements today. You can't stop the inevitable. The human species will keep on keeping on, and will love and have children with whoever they want to. There's not really anything we can do to stop them, and that's kind of the whole point of life. Now, another detail that I think both of these guys fail to mention is that it's not so much about the fear of evolution. It is about discrimination, and I think Impound Comics was really close. It's not so much about Homo sapiens sapiens running out Neanderthals and Denisovans and all of those other human species. It's that there's this tendency for the people in power, usually white people, to come along and colonize and genocide the people that they come across for being different, for not being them. And I think one of the scariest things to a lot of people is that someone will come along and do the same thing to them that their people have been doing for centuries, if not millennia. So I think it's less touching on that fear of being left behind by evolution, and more of that fear of being on the losing side of history, which is a little bit different, because human beings, we are all so genetically similar. We have more genetically in common with each other than different breeds of cats have with each other. We're not humans of different skin colors are not genetically different enough to be considered a subspecies. There are people in Africa that live in neighboring villages that are more genetically diverse between one another than the Africans that were the ancestors of the people that left and went to Asia or Europe, which is interesting. So there could be a village in Africa that has been there, since the dawn of human history, and you have more genetically in common with them than they do neighbors that live 10 miles down the road, which is fascinating. But yeah, I just wanted to reply to this video. I hope you found it informative. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye. Shout out to my Demon Lord level patrons, Harvey and Paige. If you'd like to join my Patreon and earn a spot in the credits, you can find the link in the description down below.